General Hospital spoilers reveal that the unexpected return of three central characters is not only shaking the fragile rhythm of life in Port Charles, but also pushing already fractured relationships to dangerously uncontrollable levels. Each of them carries unresolved pasts, hidden agendas, and a chain of actions that could ignite unprecedented conflict. Gloria Cerullo's return to Port Charles isn't just a casual family visit. She isn't a gentle grandmother returning in silence. She's a volatile force bringing with her secrets from Lois's past, buried painful memories, and unanswered questions about the truth behind Joe's bloodline. With Gloria's arrival, Brooke Lynn is not only forced to face her mother's betrayal but also to confront the reality that her family is being torn apart by the very people she loves the most. At the same time, the return of Rocco Falconeri strikes like a slow-burning earthquake. It's been years since he faded from the spotlight, but this return carries a whole new weight. Rocco is no longer a carefree child. He's a teenager facing the biggest shock of his life, discovering that Gio, his friend, neighbor, the relative he never paid much attention to, is in fact his half-brother. To make things worse, he now witnesses his parents, Dante and Lulu, spiraling through a deep crisis of trust where every word and every hug is under suspicion. Rocco is no longer the protected child. He's now a living witness to the breakdown of a family once held as a model. And the silent fury in his eyes may be a sign of a much more explosive reaction than anyone expects. As these two family-driven storylines approach the breaking point, the courtroom of Port Charles is simmering with the powerful reappearance of Diane Miller. No longer just a lawyer who appears as needed, Diane now dominates the legal battleground of the series, taking center stage in the intense war between Michael and Willow. She isn't just representing a client, she's defending the honor of an entire lineage, fighting against accusations, schemes, and carefully crafted legal narratives designed to tear the Corinthos family apart. Diane doesn't hesitate to use every tactic, even risky gambits, to secure an advantage for Michael, even if the price is irreparable damage between once-loving individuals. Her relentless presence now puts the town's underworld on alert, because any testimony or evidence she presents could be the fatal blow to powers once thought untouchable. Three characters, three storylines, three separate dimensions are converging at the same time, in the same place, leading to one inevitable outcome. Port Charles is no longer a place of peace. The once far-fetched theories are now flashing clearly on screen. A mother returns to uncover buried truths. A child comes back with fury in his eyes, and a lawyer reappears with a mission to expose it all. Every step they take, every word they speak, is like fuel thrown on a fire burning silently within others. Port Charles isn't just in crisis, it's exploding. And with these returns triggering a chain reaction, one thing is clear: if peace ever existed, it has now officially ended. The transformation taking place in Port Charles is not just the inevitable result of the explosive reveal about Joe's true identity, it's a sign that the town is entering an era of unprecedented chaos. What first appeared to be personal consequences are now spreading like wildfire, sweeping through families, relationships, and even long-established power structures that have been built and guarded for generations. The most terrifying part isn't the truth about Gio, but how that truth is unfolding, slowly, uncontrollably, and increasingly haunting as those involved lose the ability to hide it, or the strength to deny it. Joe's identity is no longer just a family deception. It has surpassed those boundaries, becoming a symbol of everything hidden, of secrets landmined into the heart of each character. Once just a young man seeking peace, Gio is now the center of a rupture that extends beyond Dante and Brooke Lynn, sparking a widespread crisis of trust, touching even Michael, Sonny, Tracy, and those seemingly unconnected like Anna, Nina, and Carly. Because once the truth about a hidden child is exposed, it drags with it a wave of consequences. Past decisions are re-examined, promises are shattered, and once unshakable bonds are suddenly fragile and painful. In this context, the perfectly timed and mysterious return of Gloria Cerullo and Rocco Falconeri is no coincidence. They both emerge as catalysts, pushing Port Charles to the brink. Gloria, once a faint background presence in Lois and Brooke Lynn's story, now returns with a cold gaze and a decisive spirit. She's not here to mend things, but seemingly ready to tear apart every false layer built by the generations after her. With her memories, experiences, and deep understanding of her family, Gloria is the only living person who can confirm what's been forgotten, deny the so-called harmless lies, and force Lois to confront the truths she's been avoiding for years. With her return, silence is no longer an option for the Cerullo family, not for Lois, not for Brooke Lynn, and certainly not for Gio. Rocco, meanwhile, represents a different kind of reaction, quiet, observant, but burning with an undying anger beneath the surface. As the son of Dante and Lulu, Rocco grew up believing his family, though imperfect, was always honest. Now, knowing he has a half-brother whose existence was hidden from him throughout his childhood, he no longer feels like he belongs anywhere. He's the product of a broken marriage, caught between shards of betrayal, and now faces the gut-wrenching reality that his very presence in the family was always shadowed by a larger hidden truth. Rocco's return, therefore, isn't just a reunion, it's a rebellion. Every cold glance he casts at Dante or Brooke Lynn holds the painful question, why didn't anyone tell me? While Gio is forced to prove he deserves to exist. Gloria and Rocco, from two different generations, unintentionally stand on opposite sides of the battlefield. One wants to expose the truth, no matter the pain. The other wants to understand it, but also to strike back for what's been lost. This dynamic turns the current adjustment in Port Charles into more than a personal choice. It's a complete reshaping of the relational landscape among the key characters. Allies begin to doubt each other. Strong bonds are tested to their breaking points. And the very foundations, family, loyalty, love, become the most vulnerable targets of all. The air in Port Charles is shifting by the hour. Even the smallest conversations carry layers of meaning and suspicion. Every word, every action, every decision can spark a new emotional explosion. The haunting weight of buried truths and distorted memories is creeping into every room, every gaze, and every heart. Calculated changes, once silently planned, must now face the light of reality. There are no safe spaces. No quiet corners. Joe's identity is no longer a secret, it's the storm that's torn through every moral and emotional structure of the community. And while Gloria continues peeling back layers of buried memories, and Rocco begins questioning the very nature of trust, the story in Port Charles turns a new page. A page of chaos, of uncertainty. And one that offers no way back. Gio and Gloria are no longer merely two characters swept up in the whirlwind of buried secrets, they are now actively stepping into the heart of Port Charles's battlefield. Carrying with them new strategies, new demands, and a burning ambition to claim the place they believe is rightfully theirs. Their return is not about healing old wounds or clarifying the past. It is about reshaping the present and seizing control of the future. As Gio gradually awakens to his own power in the wake of his identity being revealed, Gloria, mother, grandmother, and witness to a generation's worth of mistakes, quietly initiates a strategic chain of recalibrations that force everyone who thought the game was settled to reevaluate the board. This shift isn't an impulsive outburst, it is the culmination of years of internalized obsession, about honor, power, stolen opportunities, and losses that were never compensated. Gloria is no longer silent. She begins asking questions. She demands a say in decisions that affect the entire family legacy. She doesn't just want to know, she wants to influence, to be heard. And ultimately, to control. Her private meetings with Tracy, her cryptic conversations with Lois, and her veiled suggestions to Brooke Lynn are just the beginning of a much longer plan. Gloria is back, and this time, she's not walking away. Meanwhile, Gio is no longer the young man disoriented by the truth of his origins. After the initial shock, a new self begins to emerge, one who understands the value of truth and is ready to wield it as power to define his role within both the family and the community. The name, Palmieri, once a shadow over all his efforts to be acknowledged, is now a key that unlocks doors to power. And with Gloria backing him, Gio is not merely seeking recognition, he demands rights, a voice. and respect equal to any Corinthos, falconry, or courtemane. A new shift is underway, and this time, those who once overlooked him will have to pay the price for underestimating the force building within him. Simultaneously, new internal crises are emerging among those connected to this unraveling. Brooke Lynn is torn between loyalty to her family and guilt over not realizing the truth about her brother sooner. Dante, once confident in his role as a model father, is now pushed into a defensive position, confronted by Rocco's resentful and disappointed eyes, and by Joe's composed but undeniable challenge. Lulu, though reluctant, must reckon with the holes in her past she once ignored, and now pays for with the emotional fragmentation of her family. Port Charles feels as though it's being gripped by a collective anxiety, a place where everyone is losing control, shaken, and forced into a game they no longer command. Gio and Gloria's calculations have expanded beyond personal stakes. They understand that to survive and win in this ruthless world, they must create a new power structure, one with themselves at the center. Their meetings with lawyers, the re-examination of old files, the quiet rendezvous at Metro Court, and whispered conversations in the Courtemane mansion are all puzzle pieces of a far larger conspiracy. A shocking revelation is looming. Joe's true identity doesn't just impact family ties. It directly affects inheritance, financial influence, and political power in Port Charles. And once that truth is exposed, even the strongest walls begin to crack. This is no mere identity quake. It is a redefinition of Port Charles's power structure. Every emotional and strategic shift is pushing characters toward their breaking points, where there's no longer right or wrong. Only those who move faster, strike harder, and are willing to sacrifice everything to hold their ground. Gloria and Gio, once dismissed as peripheral, are now front and center. And with every action, every word, they are proving the old order is finished. A new regime is forming, and no one, not even the most powerful, can remain a spectator anymore. Another critical variable is silently taking shape in the courtroom, Diane, who is now executing a razor-sharp counteroffensive against the legal maneuvers Rick has deployed in the custody battle between Michael and Willow. Diane has never been impulsive, but her recent moves make it clear, this is no ordinary legal fight. This is a confrontation where every argument, every piece of evidence, every question she raises lands like a blow to the credibility, ethics, and very survival of the people involved. Diane is not just showing up as an attorney, she is emerging as an architect of collapse. Someone prepared to dismantle the very foundation of courtroom trust and public perception in order to defend Michael at any cost. Her entrance during the pivotal phase of the trial is a game-changer. What Rick assumed to be solid, carefully gathered evidence, indirect testimonies, and a strategy aimed at tarnishing Michael's image, is now shaken by Diane's calculated strikes. But what makes Diane even more formidable isn't just her intelligence, it's her chilling precision. She doesn't just want to win, she wants to destroy Rick's strategy. To make his carefully constructed offensive collapse in front of the jury. That's when a new kind of disaster begins to erupt. Rick, once confident in his ability to manipulate the law and emotions alike, is now forced to face a rival who no longer has patience or mercy. Diane has identified his weakness, a murky past, entangled relationships, and a hidden agenda cloaked in the pretense of child welfare. She begins planting explosive bits of information about Rick's unofficial ties to Willow, his use of unverified documents to sway the jury, and clandestine meetings with certain reporters designed to manipulate media narratives ahead of trial. Her strategy is more than legal. It's psychological warfare. She knows how to rattle Rick, make Willow feel exploited, and cast doubt in the court's mind about Rick's true motivations. With each move, Diane is constructing a new chessboard, where the law is no longer the sole weapon, but a veil for deeper threats to the political and personal ecosystem of Port Charles. What's most alarming is Diane's silence, because every moment she says nothing is a moment her opponents reveal their own mistakes. One key shift is that Diane is no longer playing support. She is the center. She represents the seemingly weaker side on paper, but in reality, she controls the entire courtroom atmosphere. Her composure, clarity, and psychological insight unravel every attempt to frame Michael as unfit. And when she finally presents evidence capable of dismantling the jury's confidence in Rick's narrative, a true catastrophe is set in motion. What began as a custody trial has now become a moral battleground, where every word and action is scrutinized under the harsh light of public opinion. Diane knows this isn't just a case to win, it's a chance to rebuild Michael's image and destroy the warped narrative Rick and Willow are pushing. But the cost is high. Rick's reputation collapses. Willow is swallowed by doubt, and the public no longer trusts what they once believed was just. The disaster isn't looming anymore. It's unfolding, in every sharp rebuttal from Diane, every cold glare from Rick, and every stunned expression from Willow. Everything is unraveling, and while others are scrambling to hold their ground, Diane is the one who started the storm, a legal, moral, and social tempest with no escape for liars, and no safe space left for those who thought they controlled the game. Diane is now confronting a web of complex upheavals, not just inside the courtroom, but behind the scenes. With the long-fractured relationship between Alexis and Christina threatening to undermine her carefully built legal strategy. Just as the Michael Willow custody trial reaches its most crucial stage, Diane finds herself battling an equally dangerous side conflict, emotional decisions, internal divisions. And impulsive moves from Alexis and Christina are weakening the very position Diane has fought to solidify. The erratic behavior of the Davis women is no longer a subplot, it's a direct threat. Alexis, though brilliant, is acting stubbornly, inserting herself emotionally and using her influence to pressure everyone from media outlets to town officials. But her lack of objectivity is backfiring, leading both the court and public to question the legitimacy of Michael's legal arguments. Meanwhile, Christina's rebellious streak, never tamed, leads her to openly oppose those she sees as manipulating her mother, even if that includes Diane. Her rash statements, unfiltered actions, and half-hearted support of unclear factions are dangerously derailing Diane's once clear strategy. Caught in this storm, Diane must now expand her role. She is no longer just Michael's fierce attorney, she must now act as a crisis manager, a behind-the-scenes negotiator, and the emotional anchor holding the Davis family from collapse. She must keep Alexis rational, stop Christina from turning every disagreement into emotional carnage, and protect Michael's legal standing without letting Davis family chaos erode the court's trust. This expanded role places Diane in a new position, not just bearing legal responsibility, but carrying the emotional burden of a family on the brink. Her story is no longer confined to legal drama, it has become a multi-layered narrative where emotional, political, and moral threads twist together. And every decision she makes carries unpredictable consequences. A new obsession is growing inside Diane, not out of fear of losing, but from the weight of being the one tasked with patching the broken pieces others left behind. She's seen Alexis fall, watched Christina spiral, and now she must use her strength not for law alone, but to hold them up, not out of duty, but out of something deeper, the belief that justice and family can still coexist. These changes are not just legal or procedural, they reflect a deeper shift in perception, in trust, and in how someone like Diane must adapt to a world where the line between right and wrong is constantly blurred. She is no longer a bystander to collapse, she is at the eye of the storm. And with every passing day, as the narrative splinters and relationships unravel, Diane must find the final anchor to hold it all together. But with every minute, the weight grows heavier. Can she carry it all? Or will she, too, become a casualty of the nightmare she didn't create, but is now bound to finish? The simultaneous return of Gloria. Rocco and Diane is creating a profound shockwave in the heart of Port Charles, when three people from three generations, three different origins converge at a time when secrets, conspiracies and obsessions are reaching their peak. Gloria returns with a cold gaze and a treasure trove of buried memories, not only reopening the unhealed wounds between Lois and Brooklyn, but also opening up a series of questions about Joe's true identity, a mystery that was thought to be settled but now rises like a smoldering fire in the darkness. Her presence is not simply a family visit, but the return of a living witness, someone who carries the power to overturn the past and reshape the future, with every word. Every look that can destroy any relationship that is maintaining a fragile balance. Meanwhile, Rocco, the son who had been thought to be far from the center of the Falconeri family's troubles, returns, torn and angry. The discovery that Gio is his half-brother is not only a shock, but also a complete collapse of the ideal father figure he once worshipped. Rocco is no longer a harmless teenager, but a symbol of a generation that is being damaged by adult deception, lies, and selfish choices. His cold eyes, his silent, accusatory silences, and his distant gestures are the rise of a new obsession, an obsession with betrayal within the family. And Rocco's presence raises a common concern about whether Port Charles is still a place where children can grow up with the truth, or whether it is all just a drama created to protect the fictional image of hypocritical parents. Diane, with her sharp intellect and steely resolve, arrives not to calm the fire, but to fuel it with her meticulously calculated legal strategies. But this time, Diane is not only facing Rick in the courtroom, she is also calculating her moves with those closest to her. As Alexis and Christina's increasingly erratic reactions, as personal conflicts threaten to derail the case, Diane is forced to shift from offense to damage control, while keeping Michael's image from collapsing under Jocelyn's secrets. She is no longer just a lawyer, she is a crisis manager, a stabilizer of a system on the verge of collapse. 3 returns, 3 different forms of energy, are together fueling a new wave of change that is spiraling out of control. Gloria recalls the past, Rocco confronts the present. Diane shapes the future, and all 3 are accompanied by a series of systemic adjustments. New hauntings are everywhere. In Brooke Lynn's eyes as she watches Gio being held by her grandmother as if he were her own grandchild, in Dante's prolonged silence as he wonders how to explain himself to Rocco. In Willow's weariness as she faces Diane's increasingly pressing advice, and in Michael's worried gaze as he learns that everything he's ever hidden is being pulled into the light layer by layer. All of these are manifestations of a new calculation, no longer individual moves, but a reset chessboard, where each piece now carries the risk of exploding. Diane knows that if she doesn't reevaluate her entire strategy, she will lose everything. Gloria knows that if she doesn't seize this opportunity to assert her position, she will forever be considered history. And Rocco, young as he is, knows that his silence could be the greatest indictment of all, one that could shake the faith of the entire community. It is this convergence that is causing things to change rapidly and irreversibly. The machinations are no longer hidden in the shadows, they are escalating into the open. Evident in every family meeting, every courtroom session, every glance that passes between characters. The truth, though still unspoken, is beginning to be felt. And as everyone begins to realize that no one can escape the consequences, Port Charles enters a new phase of chaos, where obsession becomes the driving force. And calculation is the only way to survive.